In the early hours of Saturday morning, January 3rd, something happened that will reshape how we understand American power for years to come. United States forces carried out a large-scale military operation in Caracas, Venezuela's capital. The mission was stunning in its audacity. Delta Force operators breached President Nicolás Maduro's fortified compound, extracted him and his wife, Celia Flores, from Venezuelan soil, and flew them to New York to face drug charges. By Saturday afternoon, Maduro was being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The leader of a sovereign nation, seized by a foreign military and transported to face trial in another country's courts. This isn't the beginning of a thriller novel. This is what actually happened. And what came next makes it clear this is just the opening act. When President Donald Trump addressed reporters at his Mar-a-Lago resort hours after the operation, he didn't speak with the careful language of traditional diplomacy. He declared that the United States was now in charge of Venezuela and would run the country until a transition could be arranged. He praised the operation as one of the most stunning displays of American military capability in recent history. Then, without pause, he expanded his threats far beyond Venezuela's borders. When asked about Colombia, Trump's response was chilling. He called the country very sick and described its president, Gustavo Petro, as a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he added, and he's not going to be doing it very long. Let me tell you. The reporter pressed him, did that mean a U.S. military operation in Colombia similar to what just happened in Venezuela? Trump's answer was direct and unambiguous. Sounds good to me. Think about that for a moment. The President of the United States, speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One as it flew from Florida to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, publicly stated that launching a military operation against Colombia sounded appealing to him. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't taken out of context. This was a deliberate threat made in front of cameras, meant to be heard not just in Bogota, but in every capital across Latin America. This wasn't even the first time Trump had targeted Petro personally. Just days earlier, shortly after the Venezuela operation, Trump told reporters that Petro needed to watch his ass, not his back, his ass. The language was vulgar and deliberate, designed to convey personal menace rather than diplomatic pressure. It's the kind of threat that makes clear the stakes have changed, that what happened to Maduro could happen to anyone who defies Washington. Petro heard the message loud and clear. His response was immediate and forceful. He condemned the U.S. actions and called on all Latin American nations to unite in defense of their sovereignty, warning that failure to do so would leave them treated as a servant and slave. In a lengthy statement, Petro pointed out that the United States had just become the first country in the world to bomb a South American capital in all of human history. He acknowledged that the wound from such an action would remain open for a long time, but insisted that revenge was not the answer. Instead, he called for Latin America to become a region capable of engaging with the whole world, not just looking north to Washington, but in all directions. This is a Colombian president telling his neighbors to build a new architecture of regional cooperation, one that doesn't depend on American approval. It's a direct challenge to the hemisphere's traditional power structure. Trump's vision for Latin America has a name. He calls it the Dawn Row Doctrine, a play on the 19th century Monroe Doctrine that treated Latin America as falling under U.S. influence. That original doctrine justified American intervention. Throughout the hemisphere for more than a century, Trump is reviving that logic, but with even less pretense. He's not just asserting influence, he's asserting the right to remove leaders, reshape governments, and control resources. It's dominance without the diplomatic niceties that previous administrations at least pretended to observe. The conversation then turned to Cuba, and what Trump said there reveals the strategic calculation behind these moves. He acknowledged that a lot of Cubans were killed during the Venezuela operation, though he didn't specify how many or explain the circumstances. Then he painted a picture of Cuba teetering on the edge of collapse. Cuba is ready to fall, he said. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know how they can hold that, but Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. Cuba literally is ready to fall. This wasn't idle speculation. It was a forecast based on deliberate policy. For decades, Cuba has relied on Venezuelan oil at preferential rates in new exchange for medical personnel and security cooperation. That arrangement has been Cuba's economic lifeline through years of American sanctions. Now, with Maduro captured and Venezuela's oil exports effectively under U.S. control, that lifeline has been severed. Trump is predicting Cuba's collapse not because of natural economic forces, but because Washington has engineered the conditions for that collapse. When he says military intervention in Cuba is unlikely because the island appears to be ready to fall on its own, he's not making an observation. He's describing the outcome of a strategy. Then he added a political flourish. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this foreign policy repackaged as a domestic political win. Mexico wasn't spared from Trump's warnings either. He said the country has to get their act together because drugs are pouring through Mexico and we're going to have to do something. The threat was somewhat softened by his description of Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum as a terrific person and his claim that he has a good relationship with her. But then came the punchline. Trump said he has offered to send U.S. troops to Mexico every time he has spoken with her. He acknowledged that the Mexican government is capable of addressing the drug issue, but added that unfortunately the cartels are very strong in Mexico. Then he delivered the insult, wrapped his analysis. The cartels are running Mexico, whether you like it or not. Think about what that means. Trump is publicly stating that Mexico, a democratic nation with functioning institutions, is actually controlled by criminal organizations